Anybody out there, are you with a driver license? Do you claim to have a driver's license as your own? How about a bank account? Or do you say you have a birth certificate that is yours? How about an address? Well, if you have any of those things, you're in the right place. As we have joining us today to break all this down and to shed some light and serve notice of what to do and how to do it on this topic. Joining us today is Gabriel Lazar and Sharon Daphne. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Zach.
Yeah, you bet. Well, see, I'll set this up real quick. See if this sounds familiar to anybody. And I'll use myself as an example. So I was born to earth through the womb of a woman. And, you know, it's kind of secondhand information to me, but this woman pretty much keeps me aware of this point. So this woman called my mother, I was born through her womb. I was born to earth, so I was also therefore born into a family. And to denote my place on this family tree, this lineage, this heritage, I was given a family name. So I could be recognized. I could stake my claim into this family. I could be this certain entity in this lineage. Right?
Nope.
No, you're not an entity. You're a living man.
An entity is a non-living thing. Okay. You are a living man. You are the exact opposite of an entity.
But that's okay. You know that you came from your family. That's very important. That's actually one of the first things you got to know.
That's right. And your family name, which is also called a surname, indicates where you came from. You inherited that from your father when you were born. And that, as I said, indicates where you came from. And your given name indicates what you are known as. It's usually two names. For me, it's Gabriel Lazar. Some people only have one, but it's called a Christian name, I believe.
If it is two.
But yes, it's surname and given name. Beautiful. That's what you have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you already got it right that you called it your family name.
Mm-hmm. Family name, right. We're born into a family as well as this earth, whatever this earth is. And
yes.
Whatever indeed.
But then something happens, right? Something happens. And in my case, it was probably my mother, through blind obedience, ran on down to the local vital records office and recorded a registration of live birth.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, you want that birth certificate. Yeah. We'll be talking about that. So we think that is our enemy. And we think, for example, the social security number is our enemy. When you know how to use that name, it's your friend. So
okay, well, let's
she went down there and recorded. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
she
created...
didn't know what she was doing now. But she didn't know what she was doing is the problem.
Yes, pretty much everything that we're about to talk about is predicated on that fact that we are misled from day one how to do things properly. Right. And it's through our misunderstanding and our misinterpretation that we do things wrong and make it bad on ourselves. We're doing this to ourselves. And that's a very common phrase that you'll see pop up, is that we're the ones doing it. They're just not informing us how to do it properly.
Great. Well, let's jump right in then. So from this recording, this registration, and that's a legalese term, we talk about legalese and stuff, but this legal name is brought into existence, is created.
Yes.
That's
and
correct.
Then we were talking about family name, legal name, these different types of names. Jump in and share with people what all this means.
Yes, well, that legal name we think of as us is absolutely the opposite. That is not us. And actually, before we go into all this, I would like to say, let's kind of start this off by saying there is really just a certain acceptance that you must have. There's a stage of, people talk about, there's a stage of acceptance when you learn difficult things in this world. But there is most definitely a stage of acceptance as far as this topic goes, in that you will have to accept that you've been lied to about pretty much everything from the moment you were born. And you must accept that you've been lied to and you've done things improperly up till now. You must accept that it's going to feel like you're fighting an uphill battle and you're the only one. It's going to seem like everyone's against you, even friends and family. So you're going to have to accept that this is such a difficult journey. It's a very simple process to right the ship, but the concept itself is very, very deep and multifaceted in nature.
Right.
Right. Be what I've heard coined as the Babylonian business model. Converting living souls into the artificial spirit.
Right. That's the trickery.
Assuming the corporate fiction persona. Yeah.
That's the trick that's being played. However, once you learn what they're doing and you learn how the game works, then you can play the game by their rules. And when you do that, everything is right. So the trick being played is that you are that name, that legal name that is in you. So we go through our lives thinking that's us. If you're calling yourself that, you're committing perjury against yourself. You're claiming to be a dead entity. So right then and there, you're lying.
Yeah, you've perjured yourself.
Exactly. So we have to understand the difference between who we are and what that name is and how we use that name, but it's not us. So that's what we're going to explain today.
Yeah, exactly. That's we're assuming a name, which through the annals of human history has been a very serious offense. I mean, punishable by death to use a name that's not yours. To assume a false identity and stuff. So exactly. That's a cornerstone to differentiate that. Well, what do you mean that name on the driver's license or on my bank account isn't me?
That name represents the business entity that you are using in commerce. So you're using that name, but it's not you. You as a living man cannot exist in that fictional world. That means every business transaction you do, even buying groceries, that action is not being done by you. You're only pulling the strings of that entity. So, Zach, what is your family name?
Well, let's say Alu.
Okay, so Alu is your family name. And what is your full given name? Do you have more than Zach?
No.
So it's just Zach Alu. So when you're buying something in the store, you're not actually buying it. Zach Alu is. You are just Zach. So that's the hard part for people to understand is people think that I am Sharon Schloss, but I am not. I'm Sharon Daphna. Schloss is my surname. So when you refer to me, you would say Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphna. Your family name or surname comes first because that's where you came from, followed by comma, then comes your given name. That name can't be used in commerce. They'll only use a first, middle, last.
Or first and last.
Or first and last in commerce. So you're actually kind of playing the game of Monopoly. You're moving your pieces around the board, but you're not involved in it. This is how we separate the living from that fictional world.
And when that birth certificate is issued, you'll see the field first, middle, last name on there. Now, this is a good opportunity for me to point out the distinction between a surname and a last name. And the problem is if you look in any dictionary, or any modern dictionary that is, you will see the dictionary say that those two are synonyms that can be used interchangeably. That is absolutely not the case. That is a lie. The difference between a surname and a last name is that only a living man or a woman can have a surname. Only a fictional entity, a business entity, can have a last name. And to dissect this a little further, if you look at the word surname, if you look at the prefix "sir," you will note that it means in front of or above. And you'll see that pop up in other words like surprise, surmount. There are many instances of this prefix, and that's what it means. It comes in front. How can a last name come in front? It has to be last, because that's the position of it.
So to break it down really simply is, when you see that first, middle, last name or a first and last name, that refers to the business entity that you are using to conduct business. Banking, paying your rent, buying food, buying a car, anything like that. First, middle, last, or first and last, that's all business, and that's not you. And you are just that given name. That's what you are known as. So this is very difficult for people to understand, because when you call up somebody on the phone, let's say I'm calling the credit card company, and they say, what's your name? And I say, it's Sharon. And they say, what's your last name? And I say, I don't have a last name. The business entity is called Sharon Daphna Schloss. Amazingly, I got a representative on the phone recently that totally understood that, but that's rare.
Very rare.
but that's the way it works. And my bank account is not my bank account. It's my business entity's bank account. It's a business account. So yeah, I mean, if we're jumping right into it, maybe it's complicated, but to break it down simply, you are simply that given name. And if you want to include your family name, it would come first with a comma after it, and then would come your given name. And when you see the first, middle, last, it's not you, that's the business.
But that's on paper. I mean, I don't go up to anyone and say, my name is Cohen, comma, Gabriel Lazar, because then I sound like a mental patient. So
just say you're Gabe.
Yeah, you use the proper way to do it in conversation is to use the given name, which for me, to use myself as an example, is Gabriel Lazar. Now, the thing we must remember is you don't own that name. You can't own it.
Well, you can't own anything.
You can't own anything.
Now we're moving along. I don't know if we're moving too quick or,
Well, I wanted to clear this. I wanted to clear this up because there's a lot of disinformation about this topic all over the internet.
A lot of disinformation.
Specifically YouTube. There are a lot of people saying totally wrong things to steer you in the wrong direction. In fact, more specifically, to steer you in a direction where you will end up in prison.
Well, yeah, because if you do this stuff wrong and you don't know who you are and you don't have that name properly registered, because that's what the whole thing that we need to do here is that we don't know is to use that name legally in business, the first, middle, last name, it must be registered with the Secretary of State. And the only state where you can do that properly is Minnesota. And we learned all of this from Douglas Joseph. So I can give you guys the Scribd link to his Scribd page and his pCloud link that you guys can put in the description of this video so people can see how to do it. But we have to understand that we are breaking the law, one, by saying we are that first, middle, last name, and two, by using it in commerce in all these transactions without having registered it. So that's the very most important thing we need to do. So we're going to talk about how to register it too.
Yeah, because it's not good enough to just say, oh, that first last name isn't me.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. You have to be able to prove it.
Yeah.
And this legal name registration is the only way to do this.
And you say only in Minnesota.
Yes, because of the verbiage. In Minnesota, they will call you the name holder, and you're able to fill out fields properly to where the name holder is the surname, comma, given name. There's no other state that will let you do that. Every other state will make you call yourself that first, middle, last name, and they will call you the owner. A very important thing to understand is that in business and commerce, and that includes government too, by the way, all this government stuff like the driver's license, all that stuff, going to court. In business, you don't exist. In commerce, you don't exist. Only that fictional entity exists in commerce. So you're breaking the law if you're calling that you. You don't belong there. And this is actually very liberating. We don't belong in that realm. And people always say, oh, I hate business. I hate dealing with this. I hate going to the DMV. You don't belong there, you know? So once you do this, you're not there anymore. And you're not breaking the law anymore by trying to exist in that realm when you're a living man or woman.
Would that tie into the Admiralty jurisdiction? The merchant law of the sea?
Yeah, we're getting away from that one now.
Yeah, the problem with the whole maritime admiralty law kick is that it's ultimately just another trap because it doesn't... The process of doing this is extremely simple, and part of the disinfo that I was referring to earlier are all the people that go about talking about admiralty law and UCC and all of that, this whole sovereign citizens movement.
Yeah.
That's all just either overcomplicating something that's very simple or intentionally steering you astray and eventually into a jail cell.
Yeah, you know, and recently I've gotten over my shyness about calling out the shills, and there are a lot of shills. And I've been trying to be diplomatic for so long, but I'm just going to say it. We had an interview with Jordan Maxwell, and in this interview, Jordan Maxwell, who I had listened to for a long time on this topic, he doesn't know anything about the law. That's what's interesting here. He knows a lot about the occult. He knows a lot about religions. All the stuff that he was talking about in the legal world was wrong. He said, when you get married, you are two corporations walking around together. And I corrected him on this, and I don't know, either he didn't understand
the correction.
But I'm going to tell you this. You are not two corporations walking around together. That's not physically possible. Corporations can't walk around. You are a man and woman who has gotten married as we have. We got married by a rabbi. And if you get married in whatever religion you are married with a private contract. That's between the man and the woman. That has nothing to do with the realm of commerce. When you go and get a marriage license, you are essentially trying to, you're defying the laws of nature and the laws of the land. Because when you get a marriage license, you've taken two legal entities, because they only deal in legal entities, first, middle, last names in that realm, and you're marrying them. That's not possible. Two business entities, not corporations, two business entities, by the way, cannot get married. So you need to get a license. Do you know what a license is? Do you know what the definition of it is?
To allow, get permission to do what or otherwise would not be legal or allowed.
Exactly. A license is permission to break the law. And the law of California, it's permission to break the law. The law says marriage is between a man and a woman. And in some states, it says it's it can be between the same sex as well. It doesn't say it's between two business entities, though. So when you get that marriage license, the state is giving you permission to marry two entities.
Civil marriage, well, the way I put it simply is civil marriage is an oxymoron along with personal income. There's no such thing. It's not possible. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, but needless to say, Jordan Maxwell was grossly mistaken when he said that, you know, two people getting married are two companies walking around together. They're not. They're a man and a woman. I've watched Jordan. He doesn't understand that. I don't know how a guy who studied this for so long wouldn't understand that.
Well, we can speculate about why till we're blue in the face, but the fact is there was so much incorrect information delivered in that episode. We pulled it.
It's not on YouTube anymore.
Okay, you guys, I got a question.
Nice.
Go for it.
Okay, for people like me who don't know anything about this and who are tuning in, why do they need to listen to this video?
You want to take that one? I mean, I can if you don't want to.
Well, why don't you I'll take the next one.
Okay. Because we have been doing this to ourselves. We are screwing ourselves and we don't even know it. We are doing all this stuff that we don't have to do. We don't need driver's licenses. We don't need license plates on our cars. We don't need to pay taxes. And those are just some of the 3D things that are going on. But we are actually screwing ourselves spiritually by making ourselves dead, by making ourselves part of a world we don't belong in. So as a living woman, I have taken myself out of that world. And not only do I no longer have to do all this total BS, which everybody agrees with me that going to the DMV sucks, right? I mean, paying taxes sucks.
That's SUX.
And not only that, the paperwork's incomprehensible. This is deliberately designed to confuse and confound us. So the reason people need to know this is we've been doing this to ourselves, and the way out is through knowledge and through learning what the law is and through following the law. And this is not about being an anarchist. This is not about being a sovereign citizen. This is about learning what the actual law is.
And it's having clean hands.
Passing
you're doing it right.
That stage of acceptance I was talking about, you must pass through that stage in full before you can be ready to tackle this.
Yeah. And like, for example, let's say you didn't do something right on your tax form, and then the IRS goes and digs into your bank account. Well, they dig into your personal bank account. They can do that. Do you like the idea that they can do that? It seems totally wrong. But if you have a personal bank account, they can do that. So
it's your fault.
This is the reason this is so important, is we've got to do business properly. And when you do business properly, no other business entity can get in there and screw things up. And it's also very important for people to know the government is a business entity. So we think that we're under the rule of these people. Like in California, they were passing a law that required parents to vaccinate their children. They can't do that. It's not possible because the law of California, the law in general, only deals in fictional entities. So persons, which is not you. We are not persons. Persons is an entity. We are men and women. The state cannot require any man or woman to take a vaccine, nor can they require a child to take a vaccine. They can only say, we are serving this business entity name with this notice to get a vaccine. And if the man or woman doesn't know that they are separate from that entity and hasn't registered it properly, then they've got to do what the state says. See, this is how parents who are worried about these vaccination laws can save their children's lives, by registering the child's legal name properly with the Secretary of State of Minnesota. Then when the state of California says, hey, you have to register this name, and you're going to see that legal name, the parents would write back and say, well, you have a mistake in your records. Please update them. This name is a registered business entity. It can't take a vaccine. It's non-living. And that's the end of that story.
Mm-hmm. And when the business entity is properly registered, and Doug will explain this too, it carries a very important status with it. And that status is active and in good standing. And when a business entity has that status, it has standing in any court of law over any other unregistered entity. And an entity can only have two possible statuses. It can either be registered or unregistered. And when it's unregistered, there's a lawsuit can happen at any time.
Well, you're screwed. If you haven't registered it, you're screwed.
A living man or woman can only be one of two things. They can be in compliance with the laws of commerce or out of compliance with the laws of commerce. And when you think about it, it's really, see, this is the toughest part about this, is to think about the fact that 99.99999% of the men and women on this planet are out of compliance.
And they're walking around thinking those names are them. When you walk around thinking those names are you, see, everything that's ever served to that name, any paperwork will be in that name. It's never made to you. If it was made to you, it would say surname, comma, given name. They don't do that. They can't do that. That's not part of their world. They only deal in legal fictions. So if you say it's you, well, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the original con right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we think we're that name, and so then we subjugated our living bodies, our living presence, to be punished by these laws that do not apply to living people. So there's the trap. So they don't want people in compliance. So it's very similar. That's a big game plan that they use. They don't want people. They want everybody hands dirty.
Exactly. And that's why Minnesota is the only state that you can do this properly. They have closed the door in all the other 49 states.
Do you know that Douglas is using his business entity, which is called Douglas Joseph Herich, which he is the name holder and CEO of? He's using that entity to sue the Secretary of State of California for creating a law requiring that we register that name and then making it impossible to do so. So it's very interesting what's been going on. This is being challenged. And in Minnesota, I just wanted to give an interesting footnote that the part of the law of Minnesota that states you must register the name, and by the way, every state has a law that says you must register that name. It's Chapter 333. And isn't that a special number? And they're the only state that lets you do it.
That's not a Masonic number. That's
it's God's number.
Hey, so Denise, does that make sense to you? What's that mean to you, all that?
Stop that.
Blah, 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 blah.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm sitting here going, who's they, and why have they set it up like this in the first place? Just to keep screwing us over? Is this the contract sign?
You see, the they is not necessarily so important so much as this is wrong and we need to correct it. We can figure out who they is later.
Well, I mean, but the system has been set up actually to benefit us. The reason that we're screwed is we're using it wrong. And of course, they make sure that we don't know how to use it. But the system is actually very beneficial. So if you think about it, I think it was David Rockefeller who said, you know, that he doesn't own anything. The key is to possess and control. See, if you think you own anything, you are out of compliance and you're screwing yourself. The way the elites do it is the elites, you know, the elites, I mean, I'm elite. They're not like really very special, but
the New World Order.
they keep all the wealth. You know, exactly. They've got all the wealth because they know these things and they don't let us know these things. So do you think they own anything? They don't pay any taxes. They don't own anything. Their businesses own everything.
There's an old axiom, and actually before I continue, I want to give credit where credit is due. That's William Cooper created that phrase, New World Order. That's not original, so I'm not trying to pass it off as my own. But I use that a lot because I don't like to call them elite or Illuminati. Yeah, these parasitic entities are scum.
And you said entity, by the way.
Yes,
implying they're non-living.
They're non-living, and they're scumbags. Yeah. And I would never dignify them by saying that they're illuminated in some way.
No.
It's preposterous. Anyway, there's an old axiom in law that says possession is 9/10 of the law, and the other 10th is control.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how this ties in with that first and last name, is that when you're born, that certificate of live birth is issued. When your parents sign it, the control over that name goes to the state. They created it.
Well, they created that name.
They created the name.
So your parents just gave you a given name and you inherited that surname from your father. So your parents didn't actually name you a first, middle, last name. They gave you a name. The state took that given name and that surname and they changed the order. They changed it so that it was a first, middle, and last name. They created that name.
Yeah, they removed the comma, they changed the order, and they put it in all capital letters.
Right.
Now, a lot of people really, really hone in on the all caps name, and they're very, very focused in on that. But the case of the name is not important. It's about the order that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will kind of fixate on whether it's all uppercase or lowercase letters. That's really not important. But going back to that name, when the state issues it, they own it because they created that name. They don't own you. You can't be owned. But when your parents sign that birth certificate, the state assumes control over that name. And that remains the case. And as far as I go, that remained the case until I was 30 years old and I registered that name properly with the Secretary of State of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I, the living man, Gabriel Lazar, became the name holder of Gabriel Lazar Cohen. And that took control away from the state and put it to me. I control it. I'm the name holder. Yeah. But I don't own it.
Exactly.
Again, like Sharon said.
The state owns it, actually. And the state that we registered in, Minnesota, which is the only state you can do it, Minnesota owns those names now. And
but you can use it.
You have permission to use it because you've registered it properly. That's the only thing you ever need to register is that legal name. After that, there's no registration for anything required anymore because that name is a business entity. And when you're doing business, you know, you have the choice if you want your entity to contract or not. So if the state of California says, oh, you must register that car, well, most people do because they're out of compliance. But the entity that owns the car is Sharon Daphne Schloss, and there's another one, Gabriel Lazar Cohen. These are the two entities that own our car. And those entities have no contract with the state of California. So when the registration renewal came in the mail, we simply sent back a letter explaining that we are no longer going to be doing business with California, that we are saying no thank you to this service because our business entities won't benefit from giving control of the car to the state. So now the car is no longer registered with the state of California, and it has private property plates on it. And that's another thing. You've got to put something on there. You can't drive around with no license plate. They might think it's stolen. Stolen. So the private property plate is now on there. And actually, that would be a good thing to share. I don't have it pulled up. But the best place to see that is on Doug's P-Cloud. So we'll give you guys the link, and you could put it in the description of the video so people can see the exact verbiage that he put on his private property plate. And it's, well, we've been driving around, cops follow us, and they back off. I mean, we had a cop following us for several miles recently, and he fell back farther and farther. He didn't want to get near us because they have no control over those cars if it's private property.
The point is they can't do anything. And it all goes back to what Sharon just said a few minutes ago. Is there a contract or not?
Right.
And if this entity is registered properly and there's no contract with this other entity that's trying to get some revenue from the registered entity, there's no case.
See, one of the hardest things for people to wrap their heads around is that there really isn't a government. We think we are subservient to some entity, the government, but we're not. We're living men and women. We can't be ruled. Only God rules over the living. We only answer to God's laws as living men and women. And those are the natural laws. Mm-hmm. All of their laws apply only to those legal names, those businesses, persons. So there's no... See, people have a hard time with this. They think, I'll get in trouble if I do this. Well, no, if you've registered that name...
You're already in trouble. You're out of compliance.
Well, but once you've registered that name, you can't really get in trouble. You're not part of it. And that name, that entity is not contracted with the state. People think I'm an anarchist because of this. I'm actually not. I'm following the law.
Yeah. Well, to go back to what you said earlier, governments are actually companies, business entities, masquerading as governing bodies. Mm-hmm. The U.S. government, despite the name, is no different than Monsanto or Target or Bob's Big Boy. There's no difference.
Yeah, the CEO is Donald Trump.
The CEO of that entity.
Yeah, and that's all it is. And that's why he made that little Freudian slip. I saw this video where he called it the company. He says, I can run the company. And then he changed it to country.
Quickly corrected himself. But that's,
so that's,
I mean,
why
these people give clues away.
That's why he won't. That's why he's not disclosing what he is paying or how much money he's making or what he's paid in taxes. Because he knows
he's not making it. He's not making any money.
Yeah, his business entity is. And I have a theory, but I don't know for sure, that a lot of these elites are using pseudonyms. Like I have a theory that Donald Trump might not even be this guy's name. And it's just a pseudonym so that we think they're using first and last names. So we don't really know. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
No, we don't. But what we do know is we've had the assumed name certificate, both of us, filed for over 2 years now, and we have successfully used this assumed name certificate in a variety of different ways with a variety of different business entities, and every single one of them has bowed down to it and complied with the demands of whichever business entity is making the demands.
So would that be like, what can you give us a couple examples of how you're applying that?
Absolutely.
Well, we opened our business bank accounts soon after registering the names. Before doing that, we needed to renew our passports because you still need a picture. Now, you really shouldn't need a picture ID. There actually is no such thing as a picture ID.
It's another oxymoron.
Because you can only identify an entity, and it's in the language ID, entity.
Identity.
So, for example, the driver's license, you don't want to use that because you've got a little picture next to that name, and it kind of implies that that name is you.
And however, notice that it says first name and last name.
On the driver's license.
On the driver's license.
However, once you do the ANC, the assumed name certificate, that just becomes a business card, and it happens to have your picture on it like the way realtors have their little picture on their business cards. But the document that you want to use to prove you're the name holder of the entity is the passport, because the passport is not identification. And if you've ever heard before that the passport doesn't really qualify as ID, the reason is it has a picture of you and it says surname and given name. And you can't
Not
ID.
first name and last name.
Right. So we actually, before opening the bank accounts, we renewed the passports, because you can use that to prove that you're the name holder. The ID is actually the assumed name certificate. So the first time we used the assumed name certificate successfully was in renewing the passport. We filled out the paperwork and the signatures read as such. It's 2 lines once you do this. You can't sign that business name because that entity can't sign.
It's dead.
You sign on behalf of it. So mine read Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphne, second line, DBA, Sharon Daphne Schloss. That's how the signature reads. So
which stands for doing business as.
And it's in 2 lines and it's printed. Well, we both did it that way, and we both got letters back from the passport agency. It's the Secretary of State of the United States saying, you can't sign, you didn't sign properly. You need to sign as a first, middle, and last name. Well, we both got on the phone. We had to do this each separately. And
I did mine first.
This was first.
Well, I got on the phone and I explained, Gabriel Lazar Cohen is a registered business entity, active and in good standing. This entity can't sign for itself. I have to sign on behalf of it. I'm happy to provide the paperwork that proves that this is a registered entity, active and in good standing. And I emailed PDFs of this document, which Sharon will show you in a few minutes what hers looks like. And within 20 minutes of sending that email, they got back to me saying, your passport application is being processed. There's no need to do anything further. Lightning fast.
Similar thing happened to me. It was like the same exact thing, and slightly different people, slightly different method. He got to email his. I had to mail mine. It didn't matter. When they received it, expedited service. So once we got those passports, the next thing we did was we went to US Bank, which is the bank that Doug recommended, and they have free business accounts there. And we opened business accounts for each of us, open our own business accounts for those entities. And we used the assumed name certificate as the founding documents. We then closed all personal accounts. You do not want a personal account because it's business. If you put a personal account out there, not only is it open season for these government agencies to dig into, but it violates the law. You can't have a personal account.
They can't do that with a business account that's properly registered.
You know, it was a little confusing to them, but we got a great representative there who wasn't there anymore. But I mean, you can do this at any US bank, and he understood it. And we each got our business bank accounts made to those names. And the funny thing is, when I write a check, people don't know that name's not me, but that doesn't matter. The signature still indicates that because of the way it's written. Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphne, second line, DBA, and in all caps, Sharon Daphne Schloss. The all caps just being to differentiate the business entity from the living woman who is signing on behalf of the entity.
Yeah, the bank account is a very important part of this process because that's it. Again, it's commerce. It's all fictional and it's all business. Having a personal bank account, you're just setting yourself up for disaster.
We have many stories. I mean, I can share my Airbnb story briefly and then Etsy story. My Airbnb story is this. They want a government ID approved by Airbnb, gets a little green check mark on there so that everyone knows that you've presented ID so that the hosts don't feel scared. You know, they know that you've been approved. So this is what Airbnb wanted me to do. They wanted me to take a selfie and then send them a picture over the internet of a driver's license. Okay,
that word just makes my blood curdle.
Well, I called Airbnb and I explained, your system is insisting on government ID, but it wants a selfie and it wants me to photograph a driver's license or passport. This name that's booking these rooms is a business. This is a registered entity. It doesn't have a picture. I'm the living woman. I'm staying in the rooms, but I'm not the one paying for them. My entity, Sharon Daphne Schloss, is paying for them. So it took about a week to resolve this with Airbnb, but ultimately I got an email to send the ANC, and after a lot of back and forth, I logged into my account, and sure enough, it said government issued ID, ding, green check mark approved. So no pictures, no selfies, because you can't identify that entity. And not only that, they sent me an email that said, welcome to Airbnb for business.
Wow.
What about power of attorney? Could something, if you had power of attorney to do business with your business account? Or is
all you need to do
all you need to do is register that name.
Yeah, that's it.
Have the business bank account and do business as you see fit. You're the name holder.
Yeah.
You're the CEO of that entity. You're making all the decisions, but moving that top hat or that boot around the monopoly board, that's the entity out there, not you.
That Etsy story is even better.
Oh yeah. I had to threaten the CEO. I had to threaten the CEO of Etsy, the new CEO of Etsy. We've been on Etsy selling our Organite for almost 3 years now, next February. They've kind of had a reputation for the past several years of running experiments, unauthorized experiments on their users.
Their sellers.
Their sellers. And just little things. And I never really noticed anything other than they've made their format much less user-friendly than it used to be. But that's everything just gets worse and worse. But
over the summer,
it was over the summer. They had this little thing they were doing where on your layout they were changing the prices.
Yeah.
And
raising your prices,
incorporating domestic shipping into them, which is just so wrong for a variety of reasons, not the least of which that's illegal.
International buyers wouldn't know what their shipping was going to be. And it made it look like everything was more expensive because everybody bundles shipping. So one item might be $10 to ship, but add another one, it might only add $1 or nothing. So they were making it look like everything was more expensive.
It was fraught with problems. Yeah. But yes, a $50 item that cost $10 to ship was suddenly showing up as $60. And I got right on to the Etsy support line.
We emailed them through.
Yeah, it's an email system. And I said, this is an unauthorized experiment. This must be stopped by such and such a date.
One business cannot adversely affect another business's revenue. And that's what Etsy was doing. We didn't have any sales in those days when that was happening. And on all the forums, the other people weren't having any sales either. And
they were irate. All of the people were just
and they were doing petitions, and that doesn't work. So we pretty much said, it was very simple. You have changed the prices on our shop, and this is not authorized, and it is adversely affecting our business revenue. Well, he said it because his business entity's name is on that shop.
Yes.
And he said that the CEO of Etsy would be held personally liable.
Josh Silverman.
20 minutes after they received that message, they started tearing down the experiment. And this was days earlier, days before they were going to stop.
It was a couple of days before that they had announced that the experiment would end. But there seems to be something about 20 minutes. We get
20 minutes
about
is
a
the
20-minute response time. To our demands.
We actually have an episode about this on our YouTube channel, which is The Human Frequency. If you want to learn about the whole Etsy story, it was basically a war on women entrepreneurs and small business, and we have an episode about that. And we explain a little more about the
Etsy's war on small businesses,
creativity, and women entrepreneurs. Because most people who are using Etsy are female, and this was just, and they don't know the law. So they're all helpless. They feel like there's nothing they can do.
And they're on the forums talking about petitions to stop Etsy. That doesn't do anything.
So we've used it in so many ways. And right now I'm using it to challenge a government actor in our town. And if I don't hear something back by tomorrow, this is going to court. So that's something I'll talk about later when I have my answer.
Well, we may have an interesting story to tell you.
Because I've been on the phone and emailing with this guy's lawyers, and they don't seem to understand.
I also used the assumed name certificate. I didn't actually even have to present it. They caved before I even had to send the PDFs. They were trying to pull one of our episodes that they didn't like
on YouTube.
They created a nonsensical reason, like there was a privacy complaint filed against it. And there wasn't, because the video consisted of just the two of us analyzing.
But the story we were analyzing was about the rape of a teenage girl named Savannah, and it was a hoax. This girl is a boy. She's a transgender, and I called it out. Like, we were watching it on TV at my parents' house, of all places. And I was like, I said, can a woman have an Adam's apple? Anyway, we did a whole story analyzing that fake news story, and it was all actors, and YouTube wanted to pull it.
Yeah, they didn't like it. Like I said, they made some BS reason why they said we had to remove it or something. And all I wrote back was, well, the first thing I did was I looked online to see who the CEO of YouTube is. And once I got that name, it was a Polish name, so I'm unable to pronounce it. I had to write this message back to them saying, this complaint was made in error. There are only 2 reporters in this video, myself and my wife. We've given our consent. This video falls well within YouTube guidelines. Otherwise, as our business entities generate revenue based on our videos, any removal will result in a lawsuit against
and the CEO's legal name. Now, unregistered. See, that's the thing, is these people, they don't know the law. They don't know that they were supposed to register that name. If you want to win the case, your business sues the CEO. YouTube didn't do anything wrong. That's a dead entity. That unregistered CEO, that legal name, she didn't register it. So if your business takes that business to court, your business will win because it is unregistered. Mm-hmm. So you go for the CEO. You always go for the CEO.
This is the way to hold these government actors accountable.
And the corporate CEOs.
And the corporate CEOs too. Now, to finish the story, I mentioned that name will be held financially liable in a court action if anything is done to this video. You may want to forward this communication to your legal team. I'll present the assumed name certificates upon request. A couple days later, I get the message thread continued on their end with them saying, we've reviewed like that's not exactly
your video is not going to get pulled.
They're just saying, but yeah.
You can fight censorship this way, because a lot of people are losing their YouTube channels. If YouTube doesn't like the content, they get pulled. I mean, this happens all the time. You can fight censorship, but you have to make it business. You can't get personally involved. You got to be able to cite something that's adversely affecting a business entity that is registered. And you have to make sure you're not part of the equation. You're just operating that entity.
You're not part of the equation, and personal feelings are absolutely not part of the equation.
This is how we're going to get the, when people are worried about 5G, and I mentioned that in the last time we talked, this is how you can get them to not put that stuff outside your house, because your business can hold the CEO of Verizon or any of these companies personally liable because this stuff is not approved. It's damaging the health. And if it damages your health, then how can you operate your business? You have to cite revenue loss. It's always business. You can't say, I don't like it. You know,
that doesn't fly.
It's got to be business. But you don't have to have that 5G equipment out there. If they're putting on a lamppost in front of your house, well, who owns that property? Your business entity either owns or leases that property.
And you can fight Agenda 21 this way as well.
Yes.
So
same thing.
How do you get the assumed name certificate? Who issues that? Is this something you printed yourself? Did you touch on that already?
No, I should show you a picture.
Let's do that screen share. This is the assumed name certificate, which we call the ANC for short. We use that abbreviation a lot.
So I'm going to pull it up, and you do it online at the Secretary of State website for Minnesota, and the instructions are all on Douglas Joseph's Scribd page. So again, at the end of the video, we should put a link, so people can click on that easily. So the instructions are pretty easy. Understanding it's a lot harder. Here's a picture of mine. I'm going to pull it up. Okay. Here. Go. Okay, you guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've actually blurred out the address and the email, but you can see that the assumed name is Sharon Daphna Schloss.
And that would be first, middle, last?
Middle, last. That's the legal entity. That's the business entity. And then you see the name holder, not owner. A living woman can't own anything. The name holder is me. Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphne. It's a very simple document. And you see the signature? This is one of 2 times I've ever signed this way. This is before the entity was registered, so I just signed my name. Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphne. You'll never sign anything like that again. Every time you sign a check or any document after this, it's going to say, signed by Schloss, comma, Sharon Daphne, and the second line, DBA, and then this name, Sharon Daphne Schloss.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the official document. This is identification. This is the
document that you will provide to the bank when you set up the business account for that first, middle, last name.
And you'll also receive, you can, wait, I think, oops, I'm sorry, I need to, this is the certificate of existence and registration. This is the second page though, isn't it?
No, there's only one page.
Oh, the ANC has 2 pages. Let me see. I'm not sure why I don't see this. Oh, it's a JPEG. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm not getting the second page.
But this is the main. This is the main.
Yeah.
Thing.
Because there's a second page that will have the state seal on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were going to say something, Zach?
Oh yeah. Well, so on the business entity, sometimes I see last, middle, first. Does that have any correspondence, and rather than first, middle, last, how it's actually listed on a document?
It has to be first, middle. When you're, okay, I know what you're saying, because let's say you're filling out paperwork and it wants to know last name and then first, middle. I know what you're saying.
Right,
when you're filling out a form, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you will fill it out as they say it, because it's not that you're filling it out, you're filling it out on behalf of that entity.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you will follow those fields.
I think I got another example.
So this is another document you're going to want to also get, which proves the existence and registration of that entity.
It's got the state seal on it. And
Minnesota Chapter 333.
Now, here's an example that I wanted to mention. When Sharon gets, because it's in her business entity's name, when Sharon gets her electric bill, it says in all caps, Schloss, comma, but that's still not her, because it's commerce. It can't be anything but the business entity. So they can put it in whatever order they want, but there's still, by law, that separation of the living woman and the business entity.
I think the reason that Edison does that is for their own alphabetizing or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if they were going to write a letter to my business, they would call it Sharon Schloss. So, because I don't pay that bill, my business pays that bill. It's great not owning anything. I'm free like a bird or a tree, we just control.
You're not
part of it, though.
We possess and control. Well, actually, the business entity possesses.
Well,
we operate the entity. We pull the strings and make decisions for it, and that's all we do.
Yeah, and you can't own anything. This is God's world, and this is the spiritual aspect of this. Is that when you sign up for government privileges, you give away your birthright. See, we don't have privileges. We have rights under God. And when you make the state your God, you've turned your back on God. So when we do this, we take ourselves out of that. So when they say, oh, the driver's license is the mark of the beast, that mark is on my business entity. It's not on me.
That's not my name on there.
So it's not the mark of the beast. If my business entity has the mark of the beast on it, so be it. It's an entity. Who cares? So you do return to your birthright, and your life improves in so many ways. It's not just the legal stuff. You would be amazed at the spiritual development that happens once you make this separation. But it's a long, long journey.
Yeah. And if someone wants to convict my business entity and give it the death penalty, that's an entity.
They can't do that to
go ahead, lock it up, put the cuffs around the piece of paper and haul it
This
off.
is not an excuse to do bad things, of course.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's not. No one, and also not in the spirit of the legal name registration is trying to get the state to pay for all the debt that you accrued before you registered the name.
Yeah, you really got to watch out for that stuff.
Yeah.
People are saying, oh, you can dig into these funds, and you know, I wouldn't advise it.
You're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, we don't know about that.
And as I said, it's not
Treasury Direct account.
Yeah,
it's not.
I would not mess with that.
That's all a trap, and it's not in the spirit of what the legal name registration is all about. It's about correcting something that we have done wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I paid
thousands. I paid thousands of dollars in taxes for the 12 years that I lived before I did this registration, but that was due to my misunderstanding. That was my error. That was my fault for not knowing how to do business properly. And the whole, really what's at the heart of this name registration process is you just start doing things right, and to be grateful that you have the tools and the information needed to do things right again, and to just move forward with it. And the past is the past, and you have to that's part of the stage of acceptance that I talked about at the beginning of the show.
And it's not about being angry at the government for the stupid things that we did. I mean, I made my own stupid mistakes. I didn't know, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. So, I mean, I'm not mad at the government at all. The government didn't do anything to me. I willingly gave tons of money to the IRS and to the Franchise Tax Board in California because I didn't know any better. So it's my fault. You know, that was on me.
And now our business entities have no contract with either of those two entities, because the first, middle, last name, I know people are inevitably wondering about taxes, but you have no personal income. Personal income is an oxymoron. It's only business income. And when that business is generating revenue, it's a pass-through entity. There is no tax liability.
Right.
So,
and you can't have personal income because you're not involved. This is all business.
Right.
It's a scam. It's a big scam.
Income tax is a penalty for being out of compliance with the laws of Congress.
You've got a contract. That's why, I mean, you know, if the United States is controlling that name and they've got a contract with the Internal Revenue Service, which is a business, just like the United States is a business, you know, you've got to pay. And that's, you know, if you're trying to get out of that through some illegal means, then you're going to screw yourself. You've got to know the law, and you've got to register, and you've got to live it. You know, it's not just about doing it sometimes, like when it's convenient. No, you've got to live it. You've got to tell your family. This is the hard part. My family doesn't get it at all.
Neither does mine.
No, you've got to tell your friends and family and all these people.
I am
Sharon Daphna. I am Sharon Daphna now.
We're all alone in this. We're alone together. There's a paradox for you, but we are alone because my family doesn't get it.
No, they don't want to know.
They can never possibly comprehend that I am not Gabriel Lazarco, and then that I never was.
His dad said the funniest thing when he saw our plates on our car, the private property plate. He says, do I even want to ask you what's going on with your car?
My parents and I were not talking for a number of years, but we have recently buried the hatchet, and things are very good. Once again, better than they've ever been.
Not me.
But not good enough that they would understand anything I'm doing or have any interest at all. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that, because you can't convince anyone of anything.
That's
even your own blood. Even your own blood, even your own closest friends. And you know, my dad often says, with friends like I have, who needs acquaintances? I'm the same way. I have acquaintances. Sharon and I moved up to the mountains north of Los Angeles a couple years ago, and we don't really have the same social connections. You know, we're not on social media other than Tumblr. So we don't have the same life that we did when we were living in a big metropolis. So it really changed.
We don't have a phony life anymore with fake friends.
It changes everything. It changes how it
what about married?
Wake up.
Denise?
So what about married people? I mean, my husband would just go over his head.
Well, you know.
So what if I want? He didn't.
You can.
We have a business, or our entities have a business.
Right. You can do it. You'll protect yourself. He doesn't have to do it. But you know, your name may have changed when you got married. Your legal name may have changed. I'm not
still
sure.
Not your name.
It's still not your name. That would be the name you registered. Whether you kept that original surname or you took his surname, that would change what your legal name is. So the only thing that you would have to think about is just registering your own name, your own legal name, I mean. And if he didn't want to do it, that would just be his thing to deal with. But you wouldn't want to be filing taxes anymore or any of that. That would be all on him to file what he wants to file. You wouldn't have to. But it is more complicated when you're married.
Yeah, if he wants to do it, or if he doesn't want to do it, that's his prerogative.
Yeah. But yeah, I understand if you guys have a business together, that could be a little more complicated. But whatever income was coming into your business entity, that would be your responsibility to handle that. So your business could make its portion of the income and not pay any taxes at all. And his business could make that portion of the income, and because he hadn't registered
taxable.
It's got a contract.
He's out of compliance.
So, it wouldn't really change things that much in your marriage or in your business life with your husband, but it would change the status of your legal name.
So come back around. We've got assumed name certificate and the existence and registration form.
The certificate of existence and registration.
Of existence, okay. We got private property plates, and don't call them license plates because they're not licensed.
They're not actually, right?
Right, so private property plates, where do you get private? Where all this information you say
maybe
we
I
can
should try pulling that up.
We can get on
yourself.
You make them yourself.
Yeah, I'm currently looking for it to show to you guys.
And so, as you do that, so this Douglas Joseph has a step-per-step tutorial on this process. Is that correct?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the Douglas Joseph.
I just found the license. Oh, the plate. I'm sorry, not the license plate.
Go ahead.
You mentioned
Douglas Joseph has the step-by-step.
Has this information on his website to where I can walk you through. Because I know for me, it's the slippery slope kind of thing that is like, if you do one step out of order, then it doesn't count or whatever. There's all this.
Yeah, you got to go slow.
You got to take your time.
So it's got to be a detailed, right? A detailed expose of how to
exactly
accurately.
Yeah, this is a very good time for me to make this point, because a lot of people are not willing to take the time. They just want the quick fix. They want the quick solution right there. Right. Boom, boom, boom. And that's the smartphones are really to blame for
people's use of the smartphones. You can't blame the phone.
People's addiction.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat this. People are addicted to the smartphones, and it's causing them
cognitive problems.
Yes, many cognitive problems. And one of those is they're not willing to put forth the time and the effort necessary to fully comprehend this stuff and let it sink in. Yeah. You have to read this.
Doug has an essay that you need to read.
You have to
start with.
Do it on a computer, not on a phone. Do it when you have some time set aside to really just grok it. You can't just view it and expect it to understand right off the bat.
So if you go to the Scribd page, there's an essay there called "Everything in Commerce is Fictional." And it's about 18 pages and explains this very, very well. It's an amazing document. And then also on the Scribd page are the instructions on how to file the assumed name certificate step by step. So it's all there. And if you want to see what our plates say on them, I can show you the screen. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just explain what this means. Now, when you're traveling,
traveling is one of those funny words.
I'll get to that in a second. When you make this yourself, you print it out and you laminate it and you put it on there and you put a little cover over it. Now, what goes on here is that when you're driving around and if someone's behind you, a cop, obviously, all he's going to see is private property.
That's all he needs
to see. He's not going to be able to make out what the other stuff says. That other stuff below it is for a parking enforcement officer or a tow truck operator that starts sticking their snout in your business entity's business. They will see what this says, and what this says is this automobile is private business property. owned by and held in the assumed business name of the registered persons identified below. And then it has the numbers and the website. They can go to the website, that's the Minnesota Secretary of State portal, and they can punch in those two numbers. And one of them leads to my entity, the other leads to Sharon's entity. Those are the two names that own that car. And they can see that the status, again, it comes back to that status, active and in good standing. And that's probably going to really go way over the head of whoever's looking at it, and they're going to call their boss, who's going to say, yeah, you can't touch this car. And
the
it even
officer
says
can
below,
only, I'm sorry.
It even says below, the most important part, this is not registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Do not tow or move. And the most important part, theft or unauthorized use will result in legal action against your person. And this, I believe, is enough of a deterrent to keep anyone away from the car. Now, we pay the meter when we're in LA. We don't defy any of the laws. We're not trying to make trouble. But the idea here is to just protect that business property.
The officer is not going to be able to pull you over because they only have control over cars that are registered in any one of the states. So if it says private property, they don't have control over it. They can't do anything. This is not about like being defiant. This is just about doing business properly. There's no reason to have our lives being complicated by these contracts and by us doing things illegally, which we were for so long. It just complicates your life. And everybody wants to be left alone. They want their lives to be simple. And so we just register the name, break those contracts, well, sever those contracts, not breaking anything, but you're removing those ties and those things you used to think were required, because now, it just makes life so difficult.
I know what people are thinking. They don't always leave us alone. Sometimes they get involved. Like if you're driving, now people are going to be thinking, well, what if that cop pulls me over anyway?
They can't. If they do, they weren't supposed to, but they can.
If they do, and they pull over a car that says private property on it, their person is now liable.
Yeah.
And what if I'm on the way to a lunch meeting, a really important thing, and this guy's making me late? Well, guess what? My business entity charges $5,000 an hour for my time. and
well, that's how Doug does things. You could, if you want. You could charge whatever you want.
Yes. You're making decisions for that entity.
So,
and
how do you serve notice of that? How doesn't it have to be presented somehow?
That's what we're working on.
That's the next thing that I'm doing right now, is learning how to use it in court. I haven't done it yet. And unfortunately, none of Douglas Joseph's videos explain how to sue. So that's something I'm going to have to learn, and we're going to try to get him on the phone to talk to us more about that. But
have you entered a court using the assumed name certificate?
Not yet.
No.
That's the next thing I'm working on, because I have already served notice to the board chair of the Property Owners Association in this town. There is no mayor or city council here. This is just a small private community. And there's a nuisance problem that has been making my life basically hell in the mornings. But worse than that, it's affected my business revenue because it's prevented me from getting my book done and other things I need to do. So I have served the notice to the board chair that says that my business is losing revenue as a result of this problem. Because of course I just first brought it up cordially, like, hey, can you guys do something about all the noise, that's happening at like 7:30 in the morning here every single day? And the response I got was pretty negative and personal, and not understanding the business nature that I'm asking on behalf of my entity, which is losing revenue. Anyway, I've given the board chair notice. His lawyers have been on the phone with me and emailing me. And if he doesn't comply with these very simple demands to stop the nuisance, then my business will be taking him to court. So I'm going to be filing
winning because his entity is not registered.
I'm going to be filing the paperwork. I'm thinking what date? Probably next week. Oh, look at that dog.
Aw.
What a cute dog.
Are you registered, Frodo?
Frodo.
It's Frodo. So
Frodo.
cute. So yeah,
it's out of compliance.
I have yet to use it in court, but I will definitely let you know how it goes. And we have somebody here to help us fill out the court paperwork because I've never done it.
Yeah. Yeah,
so what about Social Security? You know, because you guys are young, you know, and I'm looking at retiring in another 5 or so years.
Well,
why don't you take this one?
You know, this is interesting. Well, see, I don't want any of those so-called benefits from that business, but I understand you've probably paid into it for a long time and you want to get yours. People of our age, as me and Gabe, we would never get it anyway, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, my feeling on that, having not tried to collect on those funds, is that your business entity, which is, I'm assuming, is Denise Garou. That's your business, correct? So your business entity would be collecting it because it paid into it. So I don't think that you wouldn't be able to get it. I think you could still collect it. It's just that the difference is, there actually is no difference. The difference is that you know you're not the name that's collecting it. But I think your entity would still be able to collect.
Yeah, that should be able to go into the bank account of the
and I don't see
registered
any
name
problem
stuff.
with that. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that.
It's the problem is just more along the lines of that we have this government that keeps people like coming to them and feeling like they're dependent on them.
Yeah,
and that's really not an ideal position for us.
Well, what if you had been registered the whole time you had been working, and all the money had always been paid to the business entity properly, and your business wasn't paying taxes? Think about how much that business could have saved over those years for retirement. It's not up to another entity to decide how we do business. So let's say, you know, if they took a few $1,000s out of your paychecks every year, and some of that's going to come back to you when you're retired, well, what if they didn't take it out? Wouldn't you have likely handled it in your own way, of your own choosing, having your business bank account keep it or maybe invest it, and then when you retire you would have it?
It's not up to continue what Sharon was saying, it's not up to that entity to decide what is done with that money, but they get away with it because of our own ignorance.
Well, we're making a mistake, you know. But yeah, you've paid into it and you want to collect it. I think you collect it the same way. But yeah, it's just that it's going to an entity, not a living woman.
Yeah. Well, we have our own business and we always pay in the smallest amount because we feel like you that we're not going to see it anyways, you know. But I'm, you know, because I'm just thinking people are listening to this that you know paid in for years. They're probably thinking, well, what about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to collect on it. I'm not going to try. I don't care. I registered early enough in life that I'm going to have time to, you know, save up on my own. My business is saving a lot of money by not having to pay these taxes. So I'm just trying to be responsible and put away a little bit for the future. But, you know, nobody makes a ton of money these days. We do the best we can. But not having it skimmed off the top makes a huge difference.
Yes, huge difference. You know, the other thing that I found very interesting was just you mentioned how, you know, this is liberating information. And to make the distinction that I am not the corpse, I am not the artificial spirit, the corporate fiction person, legal person, you've actually felt that in your lives. You've felt like a full of fresh breath or something. You were describing how you've sensed a freedom that has come with this. Like there's maybe some soul contract that was voided and you are closer to your soul now or something.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
I think that's in line, at least similar with what Marcus talks about. There's a man on YouTube, his screen name is Servant King, and he's a Canadian man, and he talks about a lot of this sort of stuff. And what happens when you do the legal name registration is you turn back to face God or nature or Yahweh or whatever you want to call it. But you turn away from the state. See, people are making the state their God. Yeah. And that's called idolatry. And that's a big no-no. That's just something you shouldn't be doing regardless of what you believe in.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, Zach, about what you said about the soul contract, because that's a really good way to put it. It's like you had taken your very essence, you know, and given it away to be dead. It's like you had killed yourself, and now you're getting your life back.
We're giving away our birthright in exchange for government privileges. And when you do that, you will always get screwed until you turn it 180 degrees and correct the error. And that's what this is. This is about turning it completely opposite, because everything we've been taught about business and commerce, it's all wrong. Down to our very names. We don't even know what our names are anymore.
And you got to really watch out with the controlled opposition online too, because all these little scams and schemes and all this stuff, and these people who want to take your money for their services, they're scam artists, because what Doug offers is free. He offers it for free, and anyone can do it. It literally costs $50 to file, and then like an additional 15 for the certificate of existence and registration.
And it's good for 10 years.
You don't have to pay again for 10 years. You just renew.
You have to renew at the due date. Renewal is free. So you got 10 years out of this.
And it's the only really legal way to do anything like this. I mean, all these other scams and schemes people have, it just takes you down the wrong path, and you will end up in jail. I mean, what was the guy, Sean David Morton, recently was in huge legal trouble over tax evasion and fraud. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is not owe it. So you need to take the proper steps to register that name legally, because you don't want to get in trouble like that.
And it's not just him. Like there was Irwin Schiff got into hot water a number of years
He was
ago.
in jail for like 14 years.
He was in jail until he died. He was like in his 80s.
Because he was filling out these zero returns.
You really have, I can't understate this, you really have to beware of the controlled opposition. And some are just downright shills. They will point you in the wrong direction. Anyone who's talking about civil disobedience or anyone who hones in on the language, like they're talking about, I'm traveling in my
private conveyance.
This is not an omnibus or some other such
stagecoach.
That is all just, while some people may find it interesting or they got into this because of those videos, that's not where it's at. That's not where it's at. The only one who is talking about this sort of stuff is Douglas Joseph,
you know, there's some great
family
videos.
Herich, and you can find him, not Douglas Joseph Herich. That's his
business. And actually, to find him on Scribd, though, you would look up Douglas Joseph Herich, the business. That's what his Scribd page is. And there's some great videos right now on YouTube from a lady named Gail of Gaia out of Pahrump, Nevada, and she's been interviewing Doug on the radio. And so if you can look up Gail of Gaia and check out the interviews with Douglas Joseph, because they're all really current, like from October, November. So really new information from him. You know, it's the same stuff that he talks about every time, but every time you listen to him, he's going to give you some new insight.
Yeah, and we're going to try and sit down with the guy and really talk about some more advanced stuff.
I want to know how to sue.
Yes,
I mean, that is the next thing I'm doing.
Very important is how to use the assumed name certificate to hold people accountable. And that's a very important part of this, is because these actors have just gotten away with murder. Literally have gotten away with unconscionable acts. And this is the only way to hold them accountable, is to file the assumed name certificate. And again, it's all about business. You can't, there's nothing personal in it. Like this thing we have going now with the board chair. This is not about being woken up.
I can tell you that it has been a nightmare dealing with this BS, but that's not what I'd be suing for. My business would be suing, not me. And it would be suing just for revenue loss, because in that world, you don't exist. So you can't say, he has been making me sick. He has been making me exhausted. No, those are things that have been happening.
But that's only relevant in the private
business income loss that I would be dealing with here. And it wouldn't be me, it'd be just the entity.
So
how long ago did you...
Go ahead, Denise.
How long ago did you guys start this?
We registered in October of 2015, and the story was really nice because we were at the 5D event, which was a conference in LA where I was speaking on orgone, and we had an orgone energy panel, and Gabriel also spoke, and some other experts spoke. And we were at our table between talks and events, just selling Organite and meeting people, and a friend of mine, somebody who had been to some of my talks, came up to us and she said to me, "Do you pay taxes?" That's what she said. And I said, "Yeah, of course I do. I don't want to go to jail." And she says, "Do you know why you're paying taxes?" And she said it like this. She goes, "It's your all caps name." And of course, we know now that it's not just about the caps, it's the order. But she said it's because of that legal name. She couldn't exactly explain to me why, but she did explain to me that it was a business entity and it wasn't me. And I said, "Okay, well, this is great because we're starting our own business and I don't know what to do about taxes."
Sharon had just quit her job like a month or two prior.
And I said, "Well, we don't know what to do about reporting taxes." And she says, "You don't have to pay any taxes." She said, "I can teach you what you need to do. I can put you in touch with the guy that taught me." And that's how it happened.
That's exactly
we
how
had
it happened.
Literally just started working for ourselves and escaping those jobs. I had a corporate nightmare job, and we had just gotten out of that world, and we didn't know what to do. I was really scared, actually, about how am I going to deal with this licenses. Oh, in Los Angeles, you need a business license, all these things.
It's a mess.
You don't need any of that.
Yeah.
And she was the answer to my prayers, and she put us in touch with Doug, and he took us through the process. We registered the names.
Yeah, we went over to her house, and we had a Skype conversation with Doug, and we just did it right then and there.
Yeah, it was the answer to my prayers. I was really freaked out. I don't know if you guys ever felt that fear, but I think a lot of people have a fear of the IRS.
Yeah.
And I just was like, if I don't do it right, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I did it right in a way that I never could have even guessed. I had no idea that name wasn't me until that day.
But it takes a while. The rest takes a while to sink in. Like we've been registered for 2 years now, and we're still learning. We're still learning. And this potential court case coming up will be just another experience to add, because this is all new. And Doug says this too. We're just experimenting. We're still in the early stages, and we have to try out these things in real life and see what happens. And fortunately, Doug is taking care of a lot of that stuff on his own and can tell us about it. So he can tell us what to do and what to avoid.
Well, it's really nice that he has the instructions so clearly laid out. Anyone can do it. And you really should listen to the P Cloud. All this stuff is great. We'll give a link to the P Cloud, which has audio files of different Skype calls he's done. He explains all this stuff. It even has some of his courtroom stuff in there.
And Doug is also on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but he has some stuff that he posts on there.
It's Douglas of Avalon. So on Facebook, you would do facebook.com/Douglas_of_Avalon, AVALON. And he posts regularly. We don't use Facebook, but we literally log in just to look at, like Gabe has a login just to look at profile. Doug's page.
Yeah, perfect. Have you guys ever been confronted by the state of or California or the Internal Revenue Service about this?
No.
No, but we'll let you know if something happens.
We will. Yeah.
No, seriously.
They know not to mess with us.
Doug talks about this.
They don't even want to mess with people like us.
These business entities, they're all in contract with each other, and they're all sharing information to the nth degree. So I'm sure there's no doubt in my mind that the Franchise Tax Board is aware of those who have registered the legal names. And if they have even one brain cell in their CEOs, they will want to have nothing to do with those people.
I mean, you can see the fast responses we get when we do have to invoke the ANC. These guys do not want to mess around. Plus, we don't make that much money. I mean, we wouldn't be very interesting. You know, if we made like $1 million a year, they might be looking at us, but no. But even then, they might
couldn't do anything because it's a pass-through entity, and that entity has no tax liability.
That's true. So we could make as much as we wanted.
Yeah, if someone asks me.
And I might.
You have
maybe
no
my
personal
business
income?
will.
I have no personal income. I'm never going to have any personal income ever again. Zero.
When my business entity sues this board chair, it could get paid a lot of money.
Revenue loss.
But, you know, the IRS isn't going to get a piece of that money. And when my business entity sues the registered nurse that injured me 5 years ago, which is the next thing that it is going to do, hopefully with that, then we'll finally be able to buy a house. You never know.
This is all just, this is not frivolous. This is all just about holding people accountable for the wrongs that have been done. And concerning these government actors, they're unregistered. When the court judgment comes through, all of their assets are lienable. Everything. Right. Property, car, boat.
Well, I mean, it's not even that much money that my business will be suing this board chair for. It's just a reasonable compensation for the nuisance that has resulted in revenue loss. I have to let you guys know. I'll have my answer soon.
Yeah, well, I definitely stay in touch.
Yeah,
very soon.
Yeah. You know,
he's got 1 day left.
All government, everything's business. You know, that's one thing Jordan Maxwell probably got right. You know, he says everything is business, and it is. And, you know,
he does get some things right, but he also gets a lot of things wrong. And like Sharon was saying, he knows a lot about religions and about the occult, but he does not know squat about business or how things work in that realm. He does not know. And that misinformation, now I don't know what his intentions are. I don't care to guess, but the fact is that he is providing incorrect information, and people are just need to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good to know. You know, in my dealings with this, in my research that's been going on for a little while, I went to Dun and Bradstreet, and I looked up, according to states, regions, locations, businesses. I looked up U.S. government in Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, and U.S. government came up as a business. And many branches, many. But the number one is at headquarters, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The White House.
Douglas says that even the other countries register in the United States. Like Australia is registered in Delaware, for example.
Interesting. Yeah, there's all. And so that's when you say that the United States Senate is a registered business in New York.
Yes.
The House of Representatives is a registered business in San Juan, Puerto Rico, along with the Internal Revenue Service.
Right.
And so you can, I mean, these are business entities. These are businesses, registered
and there are
businesses.
Thousands of them.
Thousands.
There are thousands of these business entities.
Right. Every
Some are
court.
subservient to others.
Every court. I looked up courts, counties, Division of Wildlife. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all a private business.
One thing you want to know, though, is if one of these businesses is adversely affecting your business doesn't sue the business. It finds the guy in charge.
Or girl.
Because if you're going to go after the registered business, you're on equal footing in the courtroom. If you go after the top dog, like in this case, the board chair, or of a company, a CEO, they can't do anything to defend themselves because that name's not registered. Mm-hmm. So that's the key that Douglas has explained to us, is that if one of these entities wrongs your business, you go after the guy or girl at the top, and there's nothing they can do. Right now, we've got this board chair backed into a corner. It's checkmate. And the law firm continues to say, well, you're going to need to tell us when the disturbances are occurring and provide some evidence. I'm like, you know what I provided? I said, you want some documentation, you want some evidence? Here's the assumed name certificate and the certificate of existence and registration. The defendant has the burden of proof. The judge will find for the plaintiff because the defendant is unregistered. Yeah, furthermore, there is no contract between the plaintiff and the defendant. So my entity has not given authorization to his unregistered person to make this a disruptive, noisy, chaotic environment. It has not authorized that. He's going to lose. I just have to figure out how to do the paperwork. And I've got somebody right here in our town that does legal documents for a living and understands the ANC very well.
Yeah. That's
who is going to help us to fill it out.
Right. That would be how important that would be to get some quote unquote lawyers. You know, they're all in contract with the bar, so they probably won't play. But, you know, people that have this knowledge to help facilitate this would be a great benefit.
You notice, Zach, they're called licensed attorneys.
Mm-hmm. They're also called lawyers.
Right. Title of nobility.
Yeah, the lady that's going to help with the paperwork, she read Douglas's paper and is absolutely fascinated with the assumed name certificate and has experience in the courtroom and filling out paperwork. And she's not a lawyer. She's not giving legal advice. She's just going to help me to fill it out properly so that the case is filed. That is, if this guy doesn't come to his senses by tomorrow.
That's the deadline.
Very good. So, well, we look forward to following up and keep educating people on how to do this. And that was a great, I think, great information you shared, Gabe, about, you know, go into this studying it, you know, become versed in this to really comprehend what it is you're doing and what you're taking on. That's a big part of this, for sure.
Well, you have to. It's too important not to.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, we don't expect anyone to believe what we say. Doug doesn't expect anyone to believe what he has to say.
Yeah.
We just present the evidence. And now in addition to that, we're presenting our real life experiences. We're using this out in the field. And every time, without fail, the assumed name certificate wins every single time. And you can't beat those stats.
Yeah. The reason that this guy is being so obstinate, pretty much this is what I'm asking. I'm saying, hey, is there a reason you're sending out guys with chainsaws every morning at 7:30? Could that maybe possibly be done like a little later in the morning?
Can you murder nature a little later?
You know, stuff like that. It's just basically, and they've approved a drilling project across the street from our house to start drilling at 7 in the morning for months on end for a water well. And that's just not going to stand. You know, they can start drilling after 9. That's fine. But I can't be made sick and exhausted and unable to run my business. So anyway, that's really what's going on here is I made a reasonable request. And that's what's so crazy about this is that instead of just saying, oh yeah, you're right, this is probably bothering everyone, he's just being obstinate, and I know why. It's not that it's hard to tell the workers to start later. It's that it undermines his false sense of power. He thinks he runs this town. And that is what this comes down to is this is a business matter, but he's not taking it that way. He doesn't say this is a business matter. This registered entity is being harmed. It's losing revenue. He's saying some little woman renter is telling me, the board chair, what to do. I've already explained to him, yes, I'm a woman, but I'm not a renter. My business leases the property. My business operates here legally. But if you think I'm a renter, you're sorely mistaken. See, I've also found out he's a misogynist, so that's, you know, so he doesn't like that. He doesn't like that a woman who is what he considers to be lower than him on the totem pole is telling him what to do. When he doesn't understand, a woman is not telling him what to do. A business entity has been adversely affected, and its CEO is informing him of that.
Well, really, the crux of this problem is that in the POA's governing documents, noise can start here at 7 a.m. And that's what has to be changed. It's that rule is... And
they take full advantage of it. I mean, we're not talking about like once in a while and a little noise. This is like chainsaws every morning.
And that rule, and weed whackers and lawnmowers and leaf blowers and whatever else.
But it's only the board doing it. Our neighbors aren't doing this.
This is an antiquated rule, and it must be changed. That's the problem here. And you have to get to the source of the problem.
Right.
And you have to go to the top. Doug says the buck stops at the CEO. And in lieu of that, it's the board chair in this instance.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So
it's all about holding people accountable.
Give us again, Douglas Joseph's contact? People can, and we'll put that down in the information too.
The Scribd page. Yeah, I can pull it up right now and then do a screen share. Let me pull up his website.
You know, you said something interesting a while back, Sharon, about how scared you were. You know, and IRS going to get me. And it's kind of like, you know, this all has to do with just raising our awareness. And it's like leaving religion. You know, when I left religion, I was so scared I was going to go to hell. And, you know, once I got over that fear implant, you know, it was just like, I was so stupid. I didn't know, you know, but now I know better. So if
it's a reprogramming.
Yeah.
But it's a deprogramming first. And I mentioned this in an article that I did recently, that you can't just overwrite the old program. It has to be dismantled first. And we have to accept that we've just been lied to on such a grand scale. And we have to say, okay, I accept it. Everything I know about business is wrong. I need to relearn it. This
is Doug's Scribd page. And it's hard to see the address up there. I think that's why we should just have it as a link.
Yeah.
So people click on. Right. So I'll send you guys that link, and then you can add it to the video description. As you can see, his name is Herich, Douglas Joseph. And he has his business entity registered, and that business is Douglas Joseph Herich. And if you go through his documents here, his uploads, you can look at his assumed name certificate. He's got an older version of the private property plate, which is updated on the P Cloud, so you can check that out too. I'll give you that link. Do we have the P Cloud in this computer?
Yes, we do.
So this is where you can read the paper and how to file the assumed name. And there's also
law.
There's also everything you thought you already knew, and that's the P Cloud. And we'll give you that link. And he's got a lot of files here you can look through. And
actually, if you go back to bookmarks and you go to law,
in what then?
ANC. He did a P Cloud update recently.
Where's that?
The last one. This is also the P Cloud, but it's a subfolder, and this has the updated private property plates. This has that document, everything commerce is fictional.
This is a good place to go because you don't need to sign up like with Scribd. You have to sign up to download. I don't think you have to sign up here. So you can grab that document and read it over. And,
beautiful. That looks like a lot of resource there.
Oh, it's just great. He's got everything. And he's our teacher. He's the only guy that ever knew how to do this stuff. And this is the paper that you need to read to really understand it. It's a brilliant piece of writing.
It does take a while to sit in, like you said, Gabriel and Sharon. You know, I know when I first started investigating the Federal Reserve, debt-backed currency and how all that works, you know, it challenges your belief because we've been programmed to believe a certain thing. And when it's like completely opposite of that or whatever, it poses a little cognitive dissonance.
That's how I got into it too. About 10 years ago, reading The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. And that's the decidedly larger read than everything in commerce is fictional. But,
I think everything in commerce is fictional is a better read, and it's more important. But The Creature from Jekyll Island was a good book too.
That was a good start, and this information came to us just in time. And it's wonderful. I'm so grateful for Doug and the knowledge that he's provided every day. And more people are getting it, and some it's going to take longer than others, but
that's okay.
It's out there. It's out there, as he says. The cat's out of the bag, and they're running scared. All these government actors.
I think that is ultimately why this government actor is being so obstinate about such a simple request, is because, not that it isn't such a big deal. I mean, in a small town like this, to just maybe be less disruptive, but it's because of what it means for his job. It's because I've exposed him. That's what he doesn't like. And I've exposed the lawyers. I even told the lawyers that they were actors. I spoke with a lawyer on the phone, And he's like, well, what kind of business is this? I said, well, this is the kind of business everyone has. You know, this is the registered business that does all the transactions of commerce. It's an asset management. It manages the assets of Sharon Daphne Schloss. He said, well, I don't understand what kind of business this is. I said, you have one too. It's unregistered, but you have one. You know, and I tried to explain it, but
yeah, I would say most lawyers are not hip to this.
Yeah,
most of them are not, you know.
But when you point it out to them, they know that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But it ruins their job, because their job,
that's right.
They are licensed first off, right? So they've gotten permission to break the law, and they are representing unregistered entities in court.
Mm-hmm.
And Douglas has said that if they disclosed to those people that were masquerading as those legal names what they were doing, the lawyer would lose his license. They can't tell their clients that they're breaking the law by not registering.
Mm-hmm.
And these government actors, they think they run the show. When you tell them, wait a minute, you just run a business. You're only in charge of that business property over there. You can't do anything that negatively impacts the property where this business operates. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought we were a POA. I thought we could tell you what color you could paint your house.
Yeah.
No.
You can tell the unregistered persons what they have to do because they're unregistered.
Yeah.
You can't tell a registered person what to do. That's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this poor lawyer, I actually feel sorry for this guy a little bit. He's got 3 jobs. He has to appease his client without disclosing fully what's going on. He has to appease Sharon without letting her know what he's
not
thinking.
Appeasing me very well.
And his 3rd job is that he has to save his own job. This guy has 3 jobs in one, and I don't envy this guy one iota.
You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to somebody who has a business on Venice Boulevard in LA where they've done the Agenda 21 nonsense to the street there. I'm looking forward to somebody there registering and then using their business entity to sue the mayor for the madness that has ensued on Venice Boulevard. You cannot believe what they've done to this street.
They've just destroyed it.
It's Agenda 21 madness. I won't even drive on it. So,
and a lot of other people won't either, and that's adversely impacting the revenue of the business. No
right, because they're not getting
the
drive-through traffic. The other thing is the people who have houses in the neighborhood, now that's a nice area. It's Mar Vista. It's a good area of West LA. Their property values are going to go down because now all of a sudden the side streets are getting traffic. One of those guys can register that legal name, sue the mayor for lowering their business property's value. You see?
Yeah.
It's all about
then they have to
getting to the top.
Then they have to undo the whole stretch, that whole stretch of Venice between Beethoven and Inglewood. That all has to go.
It's a nightmare.
That bike lane nonsense and the stupid parking.
Without having to describe it, they've taken out a lane of traffic on each end, on each side. Even the fire department is barely able to get to fires now because of it.
It's crazy. That's interesting how it brings things back into balance. You know, things are so out of balance right now.
Yes.
With the self-imposed lords over the serfs, you know, it said, no, wait a minute, no, we can be in equity here.
But this is real. That's the thing, is that this is real. Petitioning, protesting, begging and pleading these government actors to do it, that does not work, and it never, ever will, because it's not that they don't want to do anything about it. It's that they can't. They have no jurisdiction to.
Well, there's no territorial jurisdiction. They don't rule places. They just run businesses. So it's just like, who has this property? Who has that property? You know, and what they've done to Venice Boulevard, that's all private property. Each private property goes halfway across the street. That's not city property. So any one of these businesses can demand that it be undone, provided that the business is owned by a registered entity, not someone who's out of compliance.
Let me tell you something. When you've been on the hamster wheel a long time and you suddenly get off, you're still going to be dizzy. You have to just kind of relax and wait for that to go away, and then you can start thinking clearly. And that's what the assumed name certificate is all about. Yeah. It's about getting off that hamster wheel and doing things right and holding these censor myself because I get
yeah,
emotional over this too. But it's not about emotions. Yeah, yeah. It's about business only. And that's the only way to hold these government actors accountable.
I have a friend who asked, well, why can't I just keep using my first and last name even if I registered? I said, because it's not you. It's wrong. It's not just about getting your name right. It's about reprogramming your mind. And it took me about 1.5 years after registering it for it to really sink in the way it has now. I'm able to talk about it more coherently now than I have before because I had to reprogram. It's not just about intellectually knowing that I'm Sharon Daphna. It's about just getting that old program out that these guys run my life somehow.
Mm-hmm. And then reprogramming with the new thing, which is we are liberated. That's not us acting in commerce. That's our entities. We just control it. We're separate. We don't own anything.
The whole world's going to change because of this, because more and more people are holding these government actors accountable, because right now they're getting away with whatever they want. They think they can do anything.
Yeah, that's for sure. Running roughshod, no doubt about it. And so that changed.
Property taxes. I'm so
Oh, yeah, you don't need it. Yeah, your business wouldn't be liable for that either if it were registered.
No contract.
Yeah.
No contract. Yeah, it's all contract law. Trust law, contract law. Exactly.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, hey, Gabriel Lazar and Sharon Daphna, I know we will be talking again soon about this as this process unfolds and true liberation and change upon planet Earth is what this means to me.
Yes.
And a deeper level, like we said, about our spirits too. So you guys are the Chembo.com, right?
That's correct.
And you had a YouTube channel? What was the?
Yes.
We have a YouTube channel. The show is called The Human Frequency. Very simple, youtube.com/The Human Frequency, all one word. And that link is actually on the website too, so you don't even need to memorize it.
Yeah,
I also have a Vimeo channel that you can get to from the website where I put some Sky videos and mostly Sky stuff.
We have our Etsy store where we have our Organite for sale. And that helps. Every purchase helps us to gift the state. The end of the drought, that's already been done.
Well, we've gifted other states now too.
That's
Oregon
true.
And Nevada as well.
Yeah. Were you here today?
Here where?
In Colorado.
Oh, no.
It was funny.
Is it nice? Is it nice?
Well, this morning we got hit with chemtrails like crazy. And then, maybe halfway after lunch, I saw the weirdest lenticular clouds.
Yes.
Clean up.
We have them here too.
Yeah.
That's a clean
so I was like,
the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing really for people who are frightened to death of chemtrails, as we used to be. And the funny thing is chemtrails are largely a psyop. That's what we're learning.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to be afraid of. And the planet cleans those toxins out of the sky itself.
But you got to help it now.
When you make Organite and you gift and you neutralize cell phone towers with it, that makes all the difference.
And we have a new video up on our YouTube channel on how to make your own tower busters, so you can make them yourself in bulk.
Oh, beautiful. Cool. Yeah, and they make what a great gift, too. Somebody put them on their desk, by the computer, by your router, your modem, out in your yard. And
the blog is also on the website as well. Sharon maintains that almost every day. And again, a lot of sky pictures and what's going on in the sky. And you can really see what's going on up there and how the toxins are just being cleaned up at a magnificent rate.
Yeah, fantastic. Any last words, Denise?
No.
Before we sign off today?
No, it's another great show. Yeah. It's the gift-giving season, guys.
That's right. So gifts and work on.
So head on over and get your
Organite. We're rolling? We're rolling? I thought this was just the pre-show chat that we were
doing. No edit. Live.
Can I have that in writing?
We just got warmed up, so I guess we have to do this again and get the real information in.
Okay, good.
When we go to court.
There you go.
I'll have more.
Keep us informed.
We're really hoping this doesn't go to court. We're really hoping that reason will prevail.
Most time it does.
Either way, it'll be interesting.
The thing I have to say here is that whether it goes to court or not, either way, Sharon's business entity's demands will be met. It's just whether they do it on their own accord or whether a judge forces them to. Either way, we win.
Well, let's see how it goes. I mean, this is experimental, so I'm not going to say yet. We think I'm going, but we think my business is going to win. So we'll see.
I thought I was going to start the show today with, what's in your wallet?
I might get sued for
so we'll leave it at that. What's in your wallet?
That'll give YouTube a reason to take us off.
They can't do it. Register.
Just register.
Threaten the CEO.
Yeah. So,
so look into this, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks so much for coming, and
thank you so much.
Look for the links down below, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Zach.